Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is May 21st, year 2024. Today we're going to talk about the sun entering Gemini, which it did yesterday. We're going to discuss all the pluses and the minuses, or the strengths and the weaknesses that sun in Gemini brings. And people who have the sun in Gemini, aka born during this period, how they can best utilize this energy as the sun travels through their birth sign. And it'll do so until June 20th. But first, let's just talk about Gemini in general. The sun rules the ego, the I am. So when the sun enters into the zodiac placement of Gemini, we have an opportunity, everybody, if you're born during that period of time or not, to hone up our communication skills. Gemini is all about ideas, the message, talking, writing, teaching. It rules the arms, the hands, the lungs. So of course it's dealing with the breath, how we inhale and exhale. Some people do this consciously and even as a form of sadhana. Sadhana meaning spiritual practice. Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury, the winged god. I relate really well with Gemini people. I want to wish all my Gemini friends happy solar return. Whenever your birthday is in the next 30 days, I hope you have a glorious birthday year. I relate to Gemini energy predominantly because, one, Mercury is the most aspected planet in my chart. It's activated by every other planet. And I have a loaded third house. The third house is also the natural house of Gemini. And if we look to the meaning of that third house, it deals with brothers and sisters, short journeys, communication, transportation. All of these things, the sun in Gemini also will pay extra attention to, whether or not the relationship with the siblings goes well, goes fantastic, or goes south, really depends on many more factors in the birth chart and, of course, all the parties involved. But Gemini in general, when the sun is in Gemini, does have a vibration of everybody's my brother and sister, but some people are really my brother and sister. And the Gemini energy is never boring. You will never get bored with a Gemini because their brain is always activated, sometimes a little bit too much so, and it can drive them a little bonkers. But they're constantly receiving stimulation, and as they receive it, calculating in the brain the best way to use it, and then how to shoot it back out through the mouth. Gemini rules storytellers, those magical people that take us on a journey through their words. It is a mutable sign, very flexible. The icon deals with the twins. It looks like two lines and then a line above it and a line below it. So it deals with this androgynous energy combining the yin and the yang. The Gemini constitution is light and fast, and it reminds me very much of like birds, the hummingbird, zipping here, zipping there, sharing the nectar. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of clarity in our mindset, because if we have a clear mind, having a clear mind meaning full intention and commitment with what you wish to do, that is the first thing that has to be achieved in order to reach your objectives in life. So while the sun is in Gemini, we could say that the cosmos is trying to help us understand that. Give us a chance to work those muscles, to work your jaws, and to work how what you say goes out into the world. Does it help or does it hurt? What's your story? How do you want your life story to go? Are all your actions contributing to making your life more peaceful and everybody else's? Now, currently, Mercury is in Taurus. And while it's in Taurus, the thinking mind, which will be associated with the sun in Gemini, will be drawn to where's the comfort, where's the fertile ground, where's the unmoving earth. And have you noticed how the earth has been moving? Conversations should not only address how we can make the world more beautiful, but also what our plan is when the earth gets our attention by shake, rattling, and rolling, which it's been doing so much of and will continue to do. So be prepared, not scared. Also, while we travel through the Gemini territory and we look at that Mercury, which currently is in Taurus, we'll probably be hearing some baloney about the economy, trying to tell us that it's not as difficult as everybody has been experiencing. And for some people, it's not difficult. But overall, I think we can attest to increase in everything but the income. And that's a perfect point for me to pitch my podcast, which is on patreon.com/ParkerMcP if you wish to become a patron. That's the platform where you can subscribe, get the podcasts before anybody else, also get tidbits that I write about every month that I only send out to my patrons. And I'd like to also add that my podcast, Stardust Stereo, is now on YouTube. So you can subscribe to YouTube and hear it that way. It's on 14 different channels. And there's my pitch. Okay. Mercury in Taurus will address ways in which we can move outside of situations that are not exactly traveling in a fast way, aka the ceasefire. And I want to bring this up because President Biden sort of epitomized one of the negative energies of Gemini energy. Sometimes Gemini energy can talk out both sides of its mouth. That's the negative trait. Or it can be a little superficial. It means well, but it might want to keep things a little light and take the ground of not getting too involved, even if the situation does call for it. Every sign has a higher level and a lower level. So we want to take this Gemini energy and make sure that we're not being glib or superficial about things that are going on in the world. And that brings me to our president. Biden spoke yesterday and kind of was talking out of both sides of his mouth, because I remember April 28th when he said that Ukraine was experiencing a genocide. But now that the world is protesting what's happening in Gaza, which is truly horrific. War in general is horrific. But Gaza is not a genocide. So that's a classic example of how the Gemini energy can kind of play on both sides. Oh, well, over here it is, but oh, no, that side, no, that's not. And we're going to drop food, but oh, no, we're not going to stop dropping bombs. You know, they counter each other. So when we're in the sun sign area of Gemini, we need to have clarity on our true intentions, because at some point you will be called out about your double talk, which Gemini can sometimes be prone to, and it can naturally happen just to want to be tiptoeing around, or more like flying around, difficulties. It is the natural storyteller, and I use that word in both definitions. It can be a great teller of fiction. It can also be utilized as a way in which we lie to ourselves and maybe fudge the truth to others. So keep your fudge with what you like to eat for the sweet tooth. And no fudging the truth. Let's just speak truth. So how can we contribute to helping people see their beauty while Mercury is in Taurus? By compliments that we truly mean from the heart, by looking to see their finer good before their negative trait, because we all have the negative trait and we all have the fabulous trait. So when we're mixing up that ingredients, let's play to the higher good. And let's read. Let's spend these next 30 days reading, enhancing our thinking capacity, especially our critical thinking. I saw a fabulous film, a documentary on Prime called The Booksellers, and I am a avid reader, ferocious really. It was such a delight to see this documentary. And there's another documentary that I want to push as well, because of course I can't just do one, we've got to do two because the sun's in Gemini. So I'll acknowledge that. The second documentary that I saw was called Blaze Foley, and it's about a Texan songwriter who actually originally was from Arkansas, but he's a Southern man, relocated to Texas, had an extraordinary life. It's a humanitarian tale, you know, one of those everyman tales, can relate to the struggle creatively, the obstacles in life, geniuses that is not recognized. The man was truly a fascinating person, and I am sorry that I did not hear him while he was alive. I am not a fan of country music, but this documentary so moved me, I thought, I've got to buy one of his recordings, one of his albums, CDs, whatever we want to call them now, because his poetry is so extraordinary. That is another area that Sun in Gemini deals with. The poetry, written word, spoken word, the oratorial, those people that can get up in front and the stream just flows. It clearly comes under the jurisdiction of podcasts. So get out there and talk to people. Not just talk, but also listen. Challenge yourself to hear the person's story that you might not agree with. See how it might alter your thinking, expand your consciousness, going beyond your comfort zone. That would be great use of Sun in Gemini. We are not just our thoughts. Actually, we aren't our thoughts at all, but that is a whole nother subject. Most of us still are dominated by the train of forever thoughts that goes through our brain. So while we are still under the cage of thoughts in the brain, make them good, positive thoughts. I'm going to give you some key dates coming up. Tomorrow, the 22nd, the sun will trine Pluto. Oh, beautiful. Power of the mind, power of words, the very power of words, the power of Pluto deals with power and transformation, how humanity, it's in Aquarius, can transform how we approach issues. The 31st, the Sun will square Juno. During that period, this is of May, during that period, some contracts are going to go through some tweaking. On June 3rd, the Sun will trine the South Node and sextile the North Node. That is when people from your past may suddenly show up, and you could maybe pick up the conversation in a more positive, harmonious tone than it was left off. The 4th of June, the Sun will co-join Venus. It's going to happen at 14 degrees Gemini. That's a lot of love at the party. That can also be, do I go with this person? Oh, but I want to go with that person. Or dating many people, unable to be very specific about one particular individual, which, by the way, when the Sun is in Gemini, how can I say this delicately? Focusing on just one possible person is never easy, because the Gemini constitution is there's more than one. There's always more. I like this about that person, and I like this about the other person, and I just wish I could combine them two into one person, but I can't, so I'll just go out with both of them. That sort of thinking. The Sun is square Saturn on the 9th of June. There are benefits to commitment, and there's downsides to commitment. There's a weighing that has to happen during that period of what to commit to, what commitment means, and am I on board, or am I doing the splits between ships? The 12th of June, the Sun will sextile Chiron, the wounded healer, and the maverick planet. That would be when some of those great ideas that have been germinating in your head can be put into action. On the 14th of June, Gemini will conjunct Mercury at 24 degrees Gemini. I do say that will be many languages in the head all at once. It's the puzzle. It's the scrambling. It's the trying to join up multiple things all at once. And the 14th of June really is a time in which many possible plans will be considered. And on the 20th of June, right before the solstice, the Sun will square Neptune at the last degree of Pisces. That is extremely dubious and very confusing. Best used for deep prayer and meditation, contemplation, yoga, music making, not decision making. Reach for the higher meditational levels. Elevate your being through multiple ways that give you peace. That would be a great use of it. A constant question to ask yourself for the next month would be, is this fiction or is this fact? And let me put my brain to work and find out. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. Thank you for listening. I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. If you want to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.